Life changes in unexpected ways. One moment you're folding shirts in your family's small clothing store, dreaming of something more, and the next you're watching your father throw your accounting textbooks onto the wet pavement outside. I was 22 when it happened. The daughter who was supposed to carry on the family business, not the one who dared to want more. Our store, Fashion Corner, had been my parents' pride and joy for 25 years. They'd built it from nothing after immigrating to America, turning a tiny shop in a rundown strip mall into a moderately successful business. It wasn't much, but it was their everything. "Emily, fold these properly." Mom would snap, redoing my work for the 100th time. "How will you run this store if you can't even fold a simple sweater?" That was the thing. I never wanted to run the store. Don't get me wrong. I respected what my parents had built. I understood their sacrifice, the countless hours they'd worked to give me a better life. But their dream wasn't mine. I still remember the day I first saw the night class flyer at the community college. Associate's degree in accounting. Evening classes available. My hands trembled as I took a photo of it with my phone. For weeks after, I'd lie awake at night, imagining a different future than the one my parents had planned. It took me 3 months to gather the courage to enroll. 3 months of secretly saving every tip, every extra dollar I could squeeze from my store salary. My plan was simple: work at the store during the day, take classes at night, and somehow make it all work. For 2 months, I managed to keep it hidden. I'd leave the store at 6 p.m., claiming I was meeting friends or going to the gym. Instead, I'd rush to my accounting classes, heart pounding with equal parts exhaustion and excitement. For the first time in my life, I felt alive, challenged, like I was moving towards something instead of standing still. Then came the night that changed everything. I was in the middle of my advanced accounting class when my phone started buzzing. 20 missed calls from my parents. A customer had seen me walking into the college and mentioned it to my mother. By the time I got home, they were waiting. "What is this?" Dad demanded, holding up my course schedule that he found in my bag. His face was that particular shade of red I'd only seen a few times in my life. When we'd been robbed last year, when my brother told them he was moving to Europe for a job. "I can explain," I started, but Mom cut me off. "Explain what?" "That you're wasting your time with useless classes instead of learning the business. That you're throwing away everything we built for you." "I'm not throwing anything away," I protested. "I can do both. Work here during the day, study at night." "No." Dad's fist came down on the counter so hard the register rattled. "You choose right now. The store or these foolish classes." I looked at them both, my mother's disappointed face, my father's anger, and for the first time in my life, I chose myself. "The classes," I whispered. The silence that followed was deafening. "Then get out." Dad's voice was cold, final. He walked to my workstation, grabbed my accounting textbooks, and threw them through the front door onto the rain-soaked sidewalk. "If education is more important than family, then go. Don't come back until you've learned your place." Mom didn't say a word. She just turned her back, straightening a rack of dresses as if I'd already disappeared. I gathered my soaked books from the pavement, mascara running down my face as I tried to save the pages. My whole life was in that store, but as I watched my parents lock the door behind me, I realized something important. It wasn't the life I wanted. That night, I slept on my best friend Sophia's couch, my wet textbooks spread out on her coffee table to dry. "You can stay as long as you need," she said, bringing me a cup of tea and a blanket. "But what's your plan?" I stared at my books, their pages wrinkled, but still readable. I'm going to finish what I started, I said finally. I have to. The next few months were the hardest of my life. I found a job as a bookkeeper's assistant at a small firm, barely making enough to split rent with Safia. Every morning, I'd walk past Fashion Corner on my way to work, watching my parents open up through the big front windows. They never looked up, never acknowledged me. It was like I'd ceased to exist. My brother James tried to mediate at first. Just apologize, he'd say during our secret coffee meetings. Tell them you made a mistake. They'll forgive you. But I hadn't made a mistake. Every night in class, every practice problem I solved, every concept I mastered, it all felt right in a way that folding clothes never had. 1 year turned into 2. I finished my associate's degree with honors and immediately enrolled in a bachelor's program. My entry-level bookkeeping job became a junior accountant position. I moved out of Safia's place into a tiny studio apartment of my own. Still, every morning, I'd walk past the store. Mom and Dad were always there, working just as hard as they had when I was a child. The strip mall around them was changing. Stores closing, new ones opening, rents rising with each passing year. But Fashion Corner remained frozen in time, exactly as I remembered it, until the day I saw the notice posted on the building's main entrance. No TIC of SAALE, prime retail location. All inquiries to Maxwell Real Estate Group. My heart stopped. The whole strip mall was being sold. What would happen to my parents' store? To their dream? I knew from my morning walks that business hadn't been great lately. The neighborhood was gentrifying, and Fashion Corner's outdated inventory and tired storefront stood out like a relic from another era. That night, I couldn't sleep. My parents might have thrown me out, but they were still my parents. The store might not have been my dream, but it was theirs. And now, after 25 years, they might lose everything. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. Property records, tax assessments, market values. Numbers had become my language, and what they told me wasn't good. The strip mall was undervalued, and any new owner would likely double or triple the rents to match market rates. My parents would never be able to afford it. I sat there in my tiny apartment, surrounded by textbooks and financial statements, and made a decision that would change all our lives forever. I just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I called Maxwell Real Estate Group. The receptionist almost dismissed me until I mentioned I was interested in purchasing, not leasing. Suddenly, her tone changed. Miss Carter? Yes, Mr. Maxwell can see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. I looked at my bank account that night. 5 years of aggressive saving and smart investments had left me with a decent nest egg, but nowhere near enough to buy a commercial property. Still, I put on my best suit, the one I'd bought to celebrate my promotion to senior accountant, and walked into that meeting like I belonged there. Robert Maxwell was exactly what you'd expect from a successful real estate broker. Expensive suit, practiced smile, firm handshake. So, Ms. Carter, you're interested in the Riverside Strip Mall? Yes, I said, forcing myself to meet his gaze. Particularly, the unit currently occupied by Fashion Corner. His eyebrows rose slightly. Interesting choice. That's one of our less profitable units. The current tenants are on a very old lease agreement. Any new owner would want to adjust that to market rates. My stomach clenched. And what are the current market rates? When he named the figure, my blood ran cold. It was triple what my parents were paying. They'd never survive that increase. The entire property is listed at $2.8 million, he continued, sliding a glossy brochure across his desk. "We're expecting significant interest." I took the brochure, my mind racing. $2.8 million might as well have been $28 million. Even with my savings and excellent credit, no bank would give me a loan that size based on my current salary. But I had something else: knowledge. 5 years of accounting work had taught me to read between the lines of financial statements. 3 years of networking had given me contacts in the real estate industry. 2 years of advanced business classes had shown me how to spot opportunities others might miss. "I'd like to see the property's financial records," I said. Maxwell looked surprised, but agreed. For the next week, I spent every free moment analyzing those documents. The previous owner had been neglecting the property for years. Several units were vacant, and the occupied ones were severely under market. The building needed repairs, but nothing structural. Most importantly, the owner was motivated to sell quickly due to health issues. I made some calls. Sophia, now a successful real estate attorney, helped me understand the legal aspects. My old professor from business school introduced me to a group of private investors who specialized in commercial properties. My boss at the accounting firm gave me a glowing reference when the bank started asking questions. 2 weeks later, I walked back into Maxwell's office with a proposal: $2.2 million, with 20% down from a combination of my savings and private investors. The rest would come from a commercial loan backed by the property's potential income once brought up to market rates. "Bold strategy," Maxwell said, reviewing my proposal. "But risky. What makes you think you can turn this property around?" I pulled out my detailed business plan. "Because I understand this neighborhood. I know what it needs, and I know how to provide it." The negotiations took another month. Every night, I'd walk past the store, watching my parents close up shop, unaware that their daughter was fighting to secure their future. Sometimes, Mom would step outside to sweep the sidewalk, and I'd duck into doorways to avoid being seen. It hurt, but I wasn't ready to face them. Not yet. Finally, after what felt like endless meetings, paperwork, and sleepless nights, I had the keys in my hand. I was now the owner of the Riverside Strip Mall, including my parents' store. The first few months were a blur of activity. I hired contractors to repair the roof and update the facade. I brought in a professional property management company to handle day-to-day operations. Most importantly, I made sure all communications with current tenants came from the management company, not me. One by one, I filled the vacant units with carefully selected businesses: a trendy coffee shop, a boutique fitness studio, a local artisan marketplace. The strip mall began to transform, and foot traffic increased dramatically. Then came the moment I'd been both dreading and anticipating. The management company sent out notices to all tenants about the upcoming lease renewals and rent adjustments. I sat in my car across the street the morning I knew my parents would receive the notice. Dad got the mail as he always did at 10 a.m. I watched him open the envelope, saw his face change as he read it. He rushed inside, presumably to show Mom. Through the window, I could see them gesturing frantically, papers spread across the counter where I used to fold clothes. Mom wiped her eyes with her apron. Dad kept shaking his head. That afternoon, they called the number on the notice, not knowing they were calling the management company I'd hired. "Please," I heard Mom say through the recording I'd received later. "We've been here for 25 years. We can't afford triple the rent. Our daughter, she used to help us with the books, but..." Her voice broke. "Is there any way to negotiate?" I sat in my new office, the one with a view of the city skyline. listening to that message over and over. My mother's voice, smaller and more vulnerable than I'd ever heard it, asking for help. The next day, I received an email from the management company. My parents had scraped together every penny they could, trying to offer a counter-proposal. It wasn't nearly enough to match market rates, but they were trying. I stared at their desperate attempt to save their life's work and made another decision. I asked the management company to send them a different kind of letter. 2 days later, I watched through the window as Dad opened this new letter. His hands shook as he read it. Mom grabbed it from him, her eyes widening. The letter offered them a 5-year lease at their current rate, with only minimal annual increases for inflation. The only condition? They had to meet with the new owner in person to sign the paperwork. I scheduled the meeting for a Wednesday morning, deliberately choosing a time I knew they'd be in the store. As I parked my car that day, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. Gone was the scared girl who'd picked up her wet textbooks from the pavement. In her place was a successful businesswoman in a tailored suit, about to change everything. I took a deep breath and walked toward the store that had once been my prison, but had inadvertently set me free. The bell above the door chimed as I walked into Fashion Corner. The sound was exactly as I remembered, a gentle tinkle that had been the soundtrack to my childhood. The store smelled the same too, that mix of new clothes and the lavender air freshener Mom had always loved. "Welcome to Fashion Corner," Mom's voice called out automatically. She was in the back, probably sorting inventory like she did every Wednesday morning. Dad was behind the counter, organizing receipts with the same meticulous care he tried to instill in me. When they looked up and saw me, time seemed to stop. "Emily?" Mom whispered, the stack of sweaters in her arms tumbling to the floor. Dad's face went through a rapid series of emotions: shock, confusion, anger, and something else I couldn't quite read. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, but his voice lacked the authority it had carried 5 years ago. I straightened my shoulders, gripping my leather portfolio like a shield. "I believe you have a meeting scheduled with the new owner of the building." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's face turned that familiar shade of red, but this time I didn't flinch. "You?" he finally managed. "You bought the building?" "Yes." I pulled out the lease papers from my portfolio, laying them on the counter, the same counter where he'd slammed my course schedule 5 years ago. "Shall we discuss the terms?" Mom came forward slowly, like she was approaching a mirage that might disappear. "But how? Remember those useless classes?" I kept my voice professional, even as my heart raced. "Turns out accounting can feed you quite well." Dad picked up the lease with trembling hands. I watched as his eyes scanned the numbers that had once been so foreign to him, the language he dismissed as worthless. This can't be right," he muttered. "These rates, they're your current rates," I confirmed, "with minimal annual increases for inflation. The other tenants are paying market value, triple what you're paying. But for Fashion Corner, I'm offering a special long-term arrangement." "Why?" Mom's voice cracked on the word. I finally let myself really look at them. They'd aged in the past 5 years. Dad's hair was more gray than black now, and Mom's face had new lines I didn't remember. They looked smaller somehow, or maybe I'd just grown bigger. "Because you're my parents," I said simply, "and because this store is your dream. It wasn't mine. It never was. But I respect what you built here." Dad sat heavily in his chair, the lease papers crackling in his grip. "We thought When we got the first notice about the rent increase, we thought we'd lose everything. I know. I pulled out another chair and sat down, maintaining a professional distance despite the urge to close the gap of 5 years. I saw the notice being posted. That's why I bought the building. With what money? Mom asked, still struggling to understand. How could you afford? I worked hard, I said, unable to keep a hint of pride from my voice. I finished my degrees, got promoted, made connections, did everything you taught me about running a business, just not in the way you expected. A tear rolled down Mom's cheek. When you left? When you kicked me out, I corrected gently. Yes, she acknowledged, and the admission seemed to cost her. We thought you were making a terrible mistake. That you'd come back in a few weeks, apologizing. Instead, I'd built my own life. I finished. One where I could help you keep yours. Dad was still staring at the lease. These terms, we can afford this. We can stay. Yes, you can stay. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. The management company will send someone over this afternoon to finalize the paperwork. Unless, I hesitated, then took the plunge. Unless you prefer to sign them now, with me. The silence stretched between us, 5 years of hurt and pride and stubbornness making it hard to bridge the gap. Then Mom moved, crossing the space between us in 3 quick steps, and pulled me into a hug that smelled of lavender and home. My smart, stubborn girl, she whispered in my ear. I'm so sorry we didn't see. Dad cleared his throat. The books, he said gruffly. For the store. They're a mess since you left. Maybe you could look at them as our landlord? I felt a smile tugging at my lips. How about as your daughter instead? He nodded, and though he didn't hug me like Mom, he did reach out and squeeze my hand, the same hand he'd once slapped an accounting textbook from. We spent the next hour going through the lease, line by line. I explained each clause, each provision, just like I'd learned to do in those night classes they'd once despised. Mom made tea in the back room, using my old mug that she'd apparently never thrown away. As I was leaving, Dad called out, Emily? I turned at the door, the bell chiming above me. Next time, he said, his voice rough with emotion, use the back entrance. No need to wait for opening hours. You still have a key, right? I reached into my purse and pulled out my keychain. Among the new keys to my office, my condo, my car, there was a small brass key I'd never had the heart to remove. Never got rid of it, I said softly. That night, I sat in my office overlooking the city, adding another document to the lease file. A succession plan for Fashion Corner, ensuring that whenever my parents decided to retire, the store would stay in the family. Not because I wanted to run it. That dream had never been mine. But because sometimes protecting someone else's dream is just as important as chasing your own. A week later, Mom called. For the first time in 5 years, I didn't let it go to voicemail. The store numbers for this month, she said, her voice tentative but warm. I was hoping you could come by and look them over. Maybe stay for dinner after. I looked at my desk calendar, at the meetings and appointments that filled my days now. Then I looked at the small brass key on my keychain, the one that had waited 5 years to be used again. I'll come through the back door, I said. Save me some of Dad's dumplings. Her laugh was watery, but real. Always, Emily. Always. As I hung up the phone, I caught my reflection in the office window. Behind me, I could see Fashion Corner's sign glowing in the twilight, looking fresher after the renovations, but still essentially the same. Like us, changed, but still standing, still family. Sometimes the longest journeys lead you right back home, just not in the way anyone expects. 5 years ago, I'd walked away from Fashion Corner with nothing but wet textbooks and a dream. Now I owned the building, had a successful career, and was finally building the relationship with my parents that I'd always wanted. One based on respect rather than obligation. Education hadn't just fed me, it had given me the power to feed us all. The next morning, I used my key in the back door of Fashion Corner. The familiar scent of lavender welcomed me home, and this time, I stayed.
I thought you were a good daughter-in-law, but it seems I was wrong. Leave this house and never come back. You're nothing but a parasite. Pack your things and go. Ever since my husband passed away, my mother-in-law Sarah and sister-in-law Catherine have been saying mean things to me. Even though I've been taking care of Sarah, my husband was worried about her until the end. And yet Catherine says bad things about him, and I couldn't help but argue back. If you both feel that way, I understand. I'll leave. When I said that, Sarah and Catherine were happy, but a few months later, they were begging me. The bad luck I wished for them was worse than I thought. My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old and work as a buyer for famous brands. I met my husband Tom through a friend. Tom was kind and calm, just the husband I wanted, so I said yes when he proposed. Tom's parents were independent, so I got along well with them and didn't have any problems with my mother-in-law. Having a caring mother-in-law and practical father-in-law seemed perfect to me. Tom worried about his mom's financial future because she didn't think much about money. He thought it would be fine as long as his dad, who was responsible with money, was healthy. Tom also had an older sister, Catherine, who was divorced and lived alone. He figured she'd take care of their parents later on. But Tom didn't fully trust Catherine. I'm worried about giving our family money matters to Catherine. Why? There were problems before. I didn't think much about Catherine's past then, but later, Tom's worries turned out to be true. After I married Tom and had a few peaceful years, his dad got sicker and died. Since Sarah always depended on her husband, she was devastated. It's tough now, Sarah, but let's try to move on. I've always let my husband handle everything. I don't know how to do it alone. Tom was worried about his mom living alone, and I share his concern. As our son, he must have been really stressed about it. Then, one night, he came to me with an idea. Emily, what if my mom comes to live with us? It was unexpected, but I had a feeling he might suggest this someday. But what about Catherine? What about her? Shouldn't she, as the daughter, take care of mom instead of us? I want to step up and take dad's place, looking after mom. She's not great with money, so I'll handle her finances too. Can't we ask Catherine to do that? No, that won't work. It was rare for Tom to firmly say no to my idea. I want to make sure dad's money is well taken care of, so mom won't struggle later on. Even though he felt bad about asking me to live together, Tom was determined to handle dad's inheritance and savings. It's okay. I think we'll all be happy living together with your mom. I'm genuinely worried about her being alone too. Oh, Emily, thank you so much. And so we started our new life as a family of 3 in Sarah's house. Just like she promised, Sarah left everything for her husband to handle, from bank accounts to bills and credit cards. She didn't really understand any of it. Tom managed her money separately from ours and decided to give her a monthly allowance for her expenses. Whenever Sarah was tempted by dodgy salespeople or pressured to buy expensive stuff by friends, it was Tom's job to guide her. If he didn't, she might end up with a lot of debt because she was careless with money. By taking on the role of her husband, Tom made his mom happy. Seeing her happier also made Tom feel better. Sarah helped out with the household chores since I was working, and everything was going smoothly. But our peaceful life came to an abrupt halt. Tom collapsed at work. He had the same illness as his dad and might have pushed himself too hard during a busy time, ending up in the hospital. Sarah and I visited him almost every day, but Tom didn't seem to be getting better. Emily, I need to talk to you about what happens after I'm gone. Don't say that. Let's focus on getting you better so we can go back to living with your mom, just like before. I knew I might get sick like Dad, so I'm prepared. But there's one thing I need you to do for me regarding Mom. Trying to hold back tears, I listened closely to my husband's last request. A few weeks later, Tom passed away. Dealing with telling relatives, sorting things out with his job, and planning the funeral kept me busy and distracted from the grief. Once everything was settled, I remembered what Tom had asked of me. There was no time to mourn now. I had to step into Tom's shoes and take care of my mother-in-law. I'm sorry I've been occupied lately, Sarah. From now on, I'll handle the money matters instead of Tom. Don't worry, I'll make sure we have enough for our monthly expenses. Emily, are you still going to stay with me now that Tom is gone? Absolutely. Tom always told me to take care of you. Let's keep supporting each other. I understand. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. I'm sorry for putting the burden of finances on you while you're already busy. Don't worry, keeping busy helps me cope, so it's actually helpful. But Catherine didn't seem happy about me living with her mom. When she found out I was not only staying but also handling the money, she burst into the house in anger. Why is Emily, an outsider, still here after Tom's gone? And why is she in charge of the money? Doesn't that seem strange to you? Before Tom passed away, he asked me to take care of Sarah and handle the finances. Are you just saying that conveniently? No, it's what Tom wanted. Is there some hidden reason behind this? And are you using Tom's name to your advantage? Catherine wasn't convinced, but she backed off for the time being. However, the next week she came back furious. Emily, what do you think you're doing? I saw everything. What are you talking about? You're having an affair, aren't you? An affair? I saw you going into a men's store and dining at a fancy restaurant with a man. Are you using Tom's money on your lover? That's not true. I haven't spent any money like that on someone else. Your excuses won't cut it. It hasn't been long since Tom passed away, and you're already moving on to someone new. Have you no shame? Mother, don't you agree? Influenced by Catherine's words, Sarah started to doubt me too. Emily, is it true? No, that's not what happened. I'm just following Tom's wishes, I tried to explain, but Catherine interrupted me. How dare you bring up Tom's name after cheating on him? How could you sink so low? I fell silent, feeling the cold stares from both Catherine and Sarah. Then Sarah spoke up. I used to think you were a good daughter-in-law, but I was wrong. I never want to see you again. Leave, Catherine chimed in triumphantly. That's right, parasites like you don't belong here. Determined not to let Tom's wishes go to waste, I endured it all. With that resolve, I remained silent. But Sarah and Catherine didn't stop there. They continued to hurl hurtful words at me. Poor Tom, picking someone like you. He was always so easily fooled, you know. Maybe he tricked you into thinking he'd handle the money, but actually used Mom's money for himself. To tarnish Tom's memory, especially when he cared so much about his mom, is unforgivable to me. I could handle them saying bad things about me, but I can't stand them insulting my late husband. I'm sorry, Tom, for not keeping our promise. I silently apologized to him as I turned to Sarah and Catherine. I understand. I'll leave like you both want. Hearing my words, the two exchanged looks and grinned. Finally seeing reason, huh? Leave the bank book here when you go. Sure. I handed over the bank book containing Sarah's living expenses and her husband's inheritance, then left the house. But 3 months later, I got a call from Sarah, whom I had distanced myself from. Emily, they're saying I can't pay my card bill. Why? What's happening? Maybe you spent too much and don't have enough left. You should check your balance using your bank book. Balance? How do I do that? It seems Sarah hadn't changed. She was still careless about money even after I left. As I thought this, Sarah started yelling at me angrily. This never happened when you were here. Suddenly after you left, the money's gone. You must have stolen it. I can't believe this. Come here right now. Furious, Sarah hung up the phone. Feeling heavy-hearted, I reluctantly went to her house. When I arrived, both Sarah and Catherine were waiting for me. Ignoring Sarah's anger, I accessed her online banking, checked the balance, and showed it to her. Here's the transaction history for this account. As you can see, while I was managing it, the balance never went negative. Do you understand why? Because I was saving money. It's hard to believe that you, who aren't good with money, would suddenly start saving. Actually, the balance stayed positive because I was depositing $1,500 every month for living expenses. Living expenses? I didn't know about that. Tom and I did it while he was alive. We decided to use our money to cover your expenses, so your savings wouldn't go down. Really? Tom did that. Yes, even after he passed away, I kept doing it with $1,500 from my own salary. But when you asked me to leave, I stopped. Then I continued, showing Sarah the transaction details. Let's see the transactions after I left. There are more than $1,500 being taken out, suggesting big expenses. I didn't change my spending habits. Maybe Catherine used it. With that, I shifted the conversation to Catherine. Looking at the details, there were card payments at fancy stores and restaurants. I can't picture Sarah spending money at those places. Catherine, do you have any clue? It wasn't me, but I can't think of anyone else who might have used it but you. Could it be you? Did you secretly use a family card or something? I've seen you at those shops and restaurants before. Even now, you're still using Mom's money. How low can you go? Can you just stop? I was there for work. The meals were for a meeting with a shop owner. Just because I say it's for work, you think you can't trust me. Fine, let's confirm it right now. I immediately called the shop owner. Thank you for always helping us out. Yes, it was last Friday, and the item was... Well, I was checking some details on the phone. Catherine just stared blankly. Thank you. Can you include that as well? Oh, I see. After ending the call and checking my email, I showed Catherine and Sarah the attached photo. It showed Catherine shopping at the store. What's this? Catherine looked shocked as she saw the photo. It seems the security camera caught you, Catherine, buying these luxury items. When I spoke to the shop owner, they confirmed it right away. I'm pretty sure the person in this photo is you. Don't you agree? Catherine was speechless. The shop owner also mentioned that items matching the ones you bought have been showing up at pawn shops lately. The dates and items match the ones when you use the card, right? Catherine's voice shook, and she seemed confused. Sarah, looking puzzled, asked Catherine, but why go through all this trouble? Buying something and then selling it to a pawn shop right away. Since Catherine didn't seem willing to answer, I spoke up. She probably needed cash quickly. If she took it straight from the bank account, it would have been noticed right away. So you tried to frame me by shopping at my workplace, making it look like I was the one spending money, didn't you? Catherine couldn't defend herself and stayed silent. Meanwhile, Sarah seemed to have more questions and kept pressing Catherine. Catherine, why do you need so much money? Well, I had debts to repay, Catherine confessed quietly. But I added more to her confession. You didn't tell Sarah about it, did you? Do you know why Catherine got divorced? It was because of her debts. Tom often mentioned how troubled he was because Catherine kept asking to borrow money. This has been going on since before Catherine got married. Even after she got married, Tom complained that Catherine's spending habits hadn't changed. You had debts. Sarah then remembered something. The money your father left you, Catherine. I gave you a bank book with the inheritance in it, didn't I? Don't tell me even that money. At Sarah's request, I checked the balance of the bank account where the inheritance was kept. Sarah, the bank account is completely empty. What? Completely empty. But a few days after I left the house, all the money was taken out of the account. No, this can't be. Sarah collapsed to her knees, yelling at Catherine in anger. What's the problem? I had to meet my repayment deadline. My father would have let me, his daughter, use the inheritance however I wanted. I can't believe Sarah is so stunned. It seems Tom was right all along. He always said letting Catherine handle money was risky. He probably saw this coming. Sarah gave Catherine a stern look. That money wasn't just for me, you know. You got your share of the inheritance, right? Who uses someone else's money? You're the one taking advantage of this house. Leave. We're done, Mom. Wait, didn't we agree that I would live here in Emily's place after she left? If I stay with someone like you, I'll end up in debt too. I expect you to return every cent of your father's inheritance. With those words, Sarah forcefully kicked Catherine out of the house. However, I'm unsure if it was the right outcome. Since then, we've lost all contact with Catherine, and Sarah never got back any of the misused inheritance. If she still had it, Sarah could have lived comfortably in her old age. But now she lives in poverty and loneliness. On the other hand, even though Catherine used the inheritance to pay off her debts, her spending habits didn't change, and she's accumulated even more debt. Without money to repay her debts, she keeps moving to avoid her loan sharks. Only now do I truly feel the weight of Tom's passing. Though things turned out differently from Tom's last wish, I believe I haven't done anything wrong. Tom wanted me to prioritize my happiness above all else. Living with Sarah and Catherine would have gone against Tom's wishes for our well-being. I believe he would understand. From now on, with memories of Tom in my heart, I'll take a new step forward. On the day we were supposed to start our honeymoon, he surprised me by giving me papers that said he wanted a divorce. He said he was taking his whole family on the trip, and if I didn't like it, we could split up. Inside, I was furious. Okay, fine, I thought to myself. But remember, I'm still free. He looked shocked as I stood there feeling triumphant. My name is Emma. I'm 35 years old, and I work at a real estate company. I really enjoy my job and feel happy doing it. I'm lucky to have supportive colleagues, but in my personal life, I don't have any specific hobbies and I've never had a boyfriend. I felt a secret worry growing inside me. All my friends were getting married by the time they hit 30, one after the other. I was one of the few left who was still single. Plus, my younger colleagues were leaving our company one after another, and it hurt every time. Then, I met Brian through a friend's introduction. He was 2 years younger than me and had a smile that made me feel warm and protective. He didn't talk much but always listened to what I had to say when we needed to make decisions. He made me feel like my thoughts mattered. Since I had no experience with relationships before, I quickly fell for Brian's personality. Our relationship progressed smoothly. When I brought up the topic of marriage, he simply said, "Okay, let's do it." Marriage involves making lots of decisions. The wedding, the honeymoon, finding a new home to live in together. It's a huge event in a person's life. So I wanted us to decide things together. But no matter what decision we faced, Ryan always let me take the lead. He never shared his own thoughts. He just agreed with whatever I said. Brian's personality began to seem unreliable to me, and I started feeling unsatisfied with him. Another thing bothering me was my relationship with my mother-in-law. She was completely different from Brian, not easygoing at all. She never listened to my opinions and always imposed her own ideas on me. "Emma, when you get married, you'll quit your job and focus on taking care of the house, right? You're not getting any younger, you know. If you don't hurry, you might not be able to have kids. Brian is working hard, so as a woman, you should focus on the family. It's a wife's duty to support her husband." These were the first things she said to me when I went to greet her. The husband works outside and the wife takes care of the home. She clung to old-fashioned ideas like this. The truth is, I earn more money than Brian does. He doesn't seem to mind, and he's even told his parents about it, but his mother doesn't seem to approve. A woman who earns more than a man isn't charming. Maybe you can't do any household chores, can you? A wife should cook, do laundry, clean, and take care of her husband's health. Can you do that? She said, looking down on me. You're right, it's definitely different when it's your mother-in-law saying those things. While it's not something to boast about, I can handle all the household chores because I've been living alone for a long time, and I don't plan on quitting my job after getting married. I want to prioritize myself just as much as Brian. But when my mother-in-law criticized me, Brian didn't stand up for me. Instead, he just nodded along with her. That made me feel uneasy about relying on him for the rest of my life. But then again, Brian is younger than me. Maybe he'll become more dependable as he gets older. If this marriage doesn't work out, I might never get married at all. My mind is torn between anxiety and desires, stuck in an endless conflict. But time doesn't wait, even when I'm troubled. There are so many decisions to make for the wedding. Where to go for the honeymoon, arranging time off from work, and more. The to-do list keeps growing, and it's making me feel even more uneasy. I was juggling busy days, preparing for both work and marriage. One day, I talked to Brian about our plans. Considering our work schedules, we can only take a long vacation at this time. So should we have our honeymoon during this period? I asked. Yeah, that sounds good to me, Brian replied. Both of us had similar quiet periods at work, so this was our only chance for a long vacation. But there was a problem with the wedding. The venue I've always dreamed of is so popular that it's booked for over a year in advance. In that case, what do you think about having the honeymoon before the wedding? I checked, and some people do that. If we have the wedding first, it will be another 2 years before we can go on the trip. If you're okay with it, Emma, then I'm fine with it too, Brian said. I thought Brian wouldn't object, but he agreed so easily. It seemed like he was accepting all my opinions without any resistance. While I did want him to express his own thoughts a bit more, I figured it was better than facing opposition. So whenever I got the chance, I kept moving forward with the preparations for our honeymoon and wedding. In the end, we settled on going to Europe for our honeymoon. I debated until the last minute between Hawaii and Europe. Hawaii was close by, and I figured we could visit there another time. So I chose to explore Italy and France, enjoying the beautiful streets and delicious food. I also wanted to check out the stylish accessories and maybe buy some special tableware since it marked the start of our new life together. After considering various schedules and destinations, I finished all the paperwork about a month before the trip. By then, I was completely excited. It was going to be my first overseas adventure, and I couldn't help but feel thrilled. My mind was consumed with thoughts about Europe, from buying travel essentials to planning our activities there. Because of this excitement, any lingering dissatisfaction I had with Brian had disappeared completely. Just 1 week before our honeymoon, Brian suddenly brought up a conversation. I was puzzled by Brian's unusual request. He rarely asked me for anything, so I was curious about what it could be. Could it be related to our trip? Did he find a place he wanted to visit? I was filled with anticipation as I asked him, "What's wrong?" Brian innocently made his request, saying, "I want to go see Taylor when we're in Paris. Mom really wants to go there." I was taken aback. "Your mother-in-law?" "Wait, what do you mean?" I couldn't keep up with this sudden turn of events, but Brian seemed to think it was obvious. "Well, since everyone else is going, we'll all be together even during the trip, right?" "What do you mean by everyone?" "It's our honeymoon, so it's obvious that it's just you and me going." "But my mom thinks it's normal for the whole family to go," Brian explained. "First of all, I only made reservations for 2 people. You and me, Brian. The deadline for booking was 7 days ago. Today is the last day to register. Whether we go together or not, I only booked for 2 people, so it was impossible for the whole family to join. If you ask the travel agency, they might be able to sort something out," Brian suggested. I was stunned by Brian's statement when suddenly, the intercom in the house rang. On the screen, I saw my in-laws. Without any regard for my surprise, they entered the house with a load of bags. Ignoring my objections, my mother-in-law's eyes sparkled as she declared, "I thought I'd leave the luggage here since we're leaving soon. I'm so excited." Brian chimed in, "Just leave the luggage here," and began leading them into the room without asking for my consent. "Wait a minute." I tried to stop him urgently, but my mother-in-law shot me a sharp look. "What's the matter, Emma? I hope you're not suddenly saying you don't want to go together now." "I never agreed to go together in the first place," I retorted, but my mother-in-law paid no attention. "You heard it, she just said no, didn't you?" "But Brian always thought we would go together with you, right?" she asked, trying to flatter Brian. Brian simply replied, "Yeah," affirming her statement. Seizing on his agreement, my mother-in-law began to dismiss me. "It's normal for the husband's parents to go on the honeymoon. Don't you have common sense? I hope you won't ruin the trip with any unpleasant experiences since it's a special honeymoon. We want to make good memories, right? I'll make sure to teach you some common sense during this week before we leave. It's supposed to be a special honeymoon after all." I felt like everything was falling apart. My blood was boiling with frustration. "Mother-in-law, this is a honeymoon, you know. Normally, it's just supposed to be the husband and wife," I insisted desperately. If I listened to my mother-in-law's demands now, it would set a bad precedent for the future. I wanted to avoid that at all costs. However, my mother-in-law stubbornly refused to back down. Not only that, but she began to dismiss my concerns altogether. "The husband's parents going on the honeymoon together is just common sense. I can't believe you don't want to be with us. I thought we were becoming a family, but it seems our ideas of common sense are different. You don't seem to like me, and nothing seems to match." "How sad," she said, lowering her eyebrows in a fake manner. Her words, "how sad," seemed to have a hidden smirk behind them. I was convinced she was deliberately trying to trap me. That's how sure I was. Even Brian, without questioning, started blaming me based on my mother-in-law's words. "Emma, what's wrong with you? They're my parents. It's okay for us to go on the honeymoon together, right?" "It's not possible. We've already booked reservations for 2 people. Plus, I've never heard of families joining a honeymoon trip," I declared. Brian shouted angrily, as if looking for a fight. "I never realized you disliked my parents so much, Emma. That's enough, just leave for today. Brian said, looking at me as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. As he spoke, a wicked smile spread across my mother-in-law's face. Why does he always take his mother's side without even considering his spouse's opinion, especially at a time like this? I wished he would support my views. Before I could react to his words, I found myself pushed out to the entrance. Just before the door closed, I caught a glimpse of my mother-in-law's smug expression. Left outside, I felt powerless. Why am I being portrayed as the bad guy? Why does everything, even this special trip, have to be ruined? Frustration and sadness consumed me, and tears began to flow. A few hours later, I received a message from Brian. I want you to see if it's still possible for them to join the tour. If not, we'll cancel this trip and find a tour where all four of us can go. Please think rationally. If you reconsider, we can sort it out properly. I don't believe I'm in the wrong. It seems like there's no reason for you to apologize or respond. Brian hasn't contacted you since his last message, and it's likely he's upset too. Time passed, and the day of your honeymoon departure finally arrived. Despite feeling unable to enjoy it in your current state, you had spent a month preparing for this trip, so you couldn't refuse. As you were getting ready to leave, the intercom rang, and it was Brian coming to pick you up. You hadn't seen each other since the incident, so you didn't know how to act around him. His arrival indicated that he still intended to go on the trip, but strangely, he didn't have any luggage with him. Instead, he handed you divorce papers. After hurting my parents, you still planned to go on this trip, didn't you? He accused. I'm taking my whole family on this honeymoon. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. My mom said it would be better that way, he added, thrusting the papers in front of you. In that moment, you finally saw his true colors. You had thought he would listen to you and prioritize your feelings, that he was a kind person. But it turned out he didn't have his own opinions, and he put his family before you. That's who Brian truly is. As I came to that realization, my feelings for him began to cool down. Even if I were to marry him, I couldn't see myself overcoming the challenges that lay ahead and becoming a family with his mother-in-law. It just seemed impossible. Determined, I pointed at the divorce papers in front of me and said, "Sure, but remember, I'm still single, you know." "Huh?" Brian exclaimed, clearly surprised by my words. "Single? What do you mean? Weren't you listening? We talked about going on the honeymoon but delaying the registration until the day of the ceremony. I made sure to get your permission, Brian. You didn't forget, did you? The marriage certificate is still in the drawer, and you even said, 'If you are fine with it, Emma, then I'm fine too.' That's right. Divorce or not, we're not even married yet. There's no problem with going on the honeymoon with my maiden name." Maybe you remembered my words. Brian's expression suddenly changed. But then he turned red and raised his voice in frustration. "Are you out of your mind to give up on marriage just because of a honeymoon? Get a grip." I responded, matching Brian's intensity with my own strong voice. "This is the result of me being rational. I've been so desperate to get married that I couldn't see reality clearly. I don't think I can be happy marrying someone who doesn't listen to their future spouse's opinions and doesn't support them. I'd rather stay single for life. Thanks for making me realize that. Haste makes waste." I keenly felt that this saying was true. "Hey Emma, let's calm down and start over from scratch, okay?" He looked like he was about to cry. His pleading voice trembled. "But I won't be fooled anymore. I will break free from this guy." Without realizing it, I found myself shouting loudly at Brian. "If you're so desperate for a family trip, why don't you go with your family of 3? But in return, you'll have to plan everything from the tour reservations to the itinerary all by yourself. After always relying on others, it's about time you experience the difficulty yourself. If you think you can handle it, go ahead, you indecisive man." I pulled out the marriage certificate from the drawer and tore it to shreds in front of Brian. His mouth hung open in shock at the sudden turn of events. Overwhelmed by my determination, Brian was completely taken aback. "Do you understand how serious I am now? I refuse to have a future that's dark. It's over between us. Why don't you go back to your beloved mommy and cry to her, you mama's boy?" Leaving a stunned Brian behind, I slammed the front door shut. Given his demeanor, he might actually go cry to his mother. I could easily imagine that happening. Afterward, I contacted the tour company to cancel our reservations. Since it was a same-day cancellation, we were charged 100% of the fee. I billed Brian for the entire amount since he was the one who ruined our honeymoon. It felt like the right thing to do. Later, Brian blamed me for the failed marriage and spread rumors about it to those around us. However, it seemed that no one sympathized with him among our relatives and coworkers. Instead, he started to be seen as an unconventional mama's boy due to his past actions and was disliked by many. When I told my parents about the divorce, they were initially surprised but quickly accepted it. Marriage isn't the only source of happiness. As long as you're happy, Emma, that's what matters. I couldn't be more grateful for my mother's words. As a side note, since then, my hobby has become traveling. I felt it would be a waste to let long vacations go to waste, so I embarked on my first solo trip. Going overseas alone was a bit daunting, but I enjoyed a relaxing time in historic cities I had always wanted to visit. Wow, being alone is actually quite enjoyable. Thanks to the historical adventure trip, I've started to fully enjoy solo traveling. Whenever I have time off on my next break, I'm planning to embark on my next overseas trip. I've begun a life where I won't let myself be controlled by marriage alone. You're not our family. Go home now. On our way to a camping trip with my husband Joseph and his parents, we stopped at a rest area off the highway. As I stepped out of the RV, Joseph abruptly hurled those hurtful words at me. What? I exclaimed, bewildered. This wasn't the Joseph I knew, the caring husband. The shock on my face seemed to amuse him and his parents as they exchanged smirks, and Joseph started to drive the RV away. This couldn't be real. They wouldn't leave me stranded in the middle of nowhere. Frantically, I dialed my phone, only to be met with a stunning rebuke from my mother-in-law. Did you honestly believe you were coming with us? How audacious of you. Don't bother calling again. I was looking forward to this trip. But we're on a one-way highway. You can't just turn back. And besides, you're not family. You're just my daughter-in-law. Know your place. We're going to enjoy ourselves without you. The call ended abruptly, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief as the RV disappeared into the distance. The words "you're not family" pierced me to the core, aching with intensity. It was all so cruel. They had me prepare everything, only to leave me behind. Overwhelmed with bitterness and heartache, I had no option but to call a taxi and return home, feeling utterly helpless. Allison, a 31-year-old woman, had been married to her husband Joseph for 2 years. Despite her initial hesitation to live with his parents, Joseph bought a house for them, a short distance away from his parents' place. While it was a relief not to live under the same roof, Allison still faced challenges. Joseph's parents, the free-spirited, often imposed tasks on her, like sudden shopping trips or cleaning their kitchen. Despite feeling harassed at times, Joseph always apologized for his parents' behavior, urging her to endure. His parents were particular about appearances, treating Allison well in front of others. She felt pressured not to speak ill of them, fearing she'd be seen as the villain. Despite her efforts to understand them better, being left behind by Joseph during a planned camping trip was a shock she struggled to recover from. The idea of camping arose during a visit to his parents, where Allison stumbled upon a lantern in the storage room. Curious, she asked about it, sparking a conversation about camping. Excited by Allison's mention of her father's camping enthusiasm and RV ownership, Joseph suggested they go on a family camping trip. With newfound excitement, he urged Allison to rent an RV for their upcoming adventure. My father cherishes his RV and takes care of it whenever he has free time. I'm not sure if he would lend it to us. Now it's your job to convince him. You better beg him to lend it to us, got it? Joseph urged when I hesitated at the sudden request. It's our first time camping and we don't know what we need, so it would be safer to borrow your dad's RV. Besides, I want to please my parents with a fun camping trip. Please, Allison. His plea left me little choice but to agree. I rushed to my father's place and explained the situation. To my surprise, he readily agreed. Really? Is it okay? I asked in disbelief. Of course. I thought you would refuse because you always polish and take care of it in your spare time. If it's for you, Allison, I'm happy to lend it, and I'm touched by your desire to please Joseph's parents. So take this whole set of camping gear so you can enjoy your first camping trip. If you're a beginner, this and this would be good, my father said, selecting easy-to-use equipment for beginners while explaining various things. I was thrilled to see how much my father cared for me, and it warmed my heart deeply. Perhaps this camping trip could serve as a bridge to bring me closer to my in-laws. All right, I'll work hard to prepare, I assured my father gratefully. I went ahead and reserved a campground equipped with power facilities, along with a nearby hot spring for added relaxation. When I shared the news with my husband and in-laws, they were overjoyed. "We're so lucky to have you, Allison. I'm so excited. I can't wait." "I'm glad you're happy," Joseph exclaimed, his enthusiasm infectious. On the day of our trip, I climbed into the RV driven by Joseph, brimming with excitement. As we hit the highway, heading towards the campground, my anticipation soared. But soon enough, my mother-in-law's demanding nature resurfaced. "Joseph, I'm thirsty. Can we stop at the interchange on our way?" she requested. "Mom, I brought some drinks. You can pick one from here," Joseph replied, trying to accommodate her needs. None of them really appealed to me. "As my daughter-in-law, you should know my tastes," my mother-in-law remarked, her tone dripping with disappointment. "I'm sorry," I stammered, feeling the weight of her words. Stepping out of the car at the interchange to buy her the requested Dieter pepper, I was blindsided by my husband's sudden coldness. "Allison, you're not a part of our family, so go home now," he uttered, his tone devoid of warmth or understanding. "Excuse me? What suddenly got into you?" I gasped, unable to comprehend his words. This wasn't the Joseph I knew. He wasn't the one who typically showed me kindness and consideration. My shock only seemed to amuse them as they laughed at my expense, and the RV began to move again, leaving me stranded. They left me here in the middle of nowhere. Is this some kind of joke? Panic set in as I dialed a number, hoping for some semblance of understanding, only to receive a response from my mother-in-law that shook me to my core. "You thought you could really come with us? What a brazen woman you are. Not a part of our family. Be aware of that. Bye. We'll enjoy a good family time without you." My mother-in-law's words echoed in my mind as the call abruptly ended. I stood there, stunned and speechless. How could they treat you like this? They had me prepare everything, only to exclude me at the last moment. What was Joseph thinking? Bitterness and sorrow washed over me, but I couldn't dwell on these feelings. Summoning all my strength, I called a taxi and returned home, feeling utterly betrayed. The following day, my husband and in-laws returned from their camping trip, excitedly recounting their adventures. Not a single word of apology passed their lips for leaving me behind. As I pressed them for answers, their response left me dumbfounded. "We did it to discipline you as my wife." "That's right, Allison. You never understand your place as our daughter-in-law. But there's no need to abandon me on the highway for that. We had to go this far because you wouldn't get it otherwise." My mother-in-law's words cut through me like a knife. "We need to properly discipline this failure of a wife before we start living together," my father-in-law added, his tone laced with disdain. The mention of living together sent a chill down my spine. Discussions were happening behind my back, and I was completely unaware. "What do you mean by living together?" "I haven't heard anything about this," I protested, my voice trembling with fear and anger. "My parents' place is getting old and is at its limit. I've bought a house where we can invite Dad and Mom to live with us. From next year, we'll be living together, so I'm going to be stricter with you. Be prepared," Joseph declared, his words hitting me like a ton of bricks. Was this his true intention all along? Deciding such a major thing without consulting me at all. I was stunned, feeling utterly betrayed. My anger was overshadowed by a sense of powerlessness as I realized my voice meant nothing to them. And to add insult to injury, after borrowing the RV, they didn't even bother to refill the gas or thank my father. "Allison, why are you just standing around? Hurry up and return the RV to your dad. After cleaning the interior, wash the car, then return it to your father." "We don't want to be seen as thoughtless," Joseph instructed, his words dripping with insincerity. As I surveyed the interior cluttered with trash, I felt a surge of disappointment. Not only had they ignored me, but they had also disrespected my father's kindness. It was unforgivable. After meticulously cleaning and washing the RV and filling up the gas tank, I returned it to my father. Upon seeing me, he greeted me with a warm smile. "How was it? Did you enjoy the trip?" "I wasn't considered as their family, so I didn't go," I replied, recounting the events of being abandoned at the highway interchange and my husband's sudden decision to live with his parents without consulting me. My father's smile vanished, replaced by an expression of fury. "I'll get even for you, Allison. We will not let this slide. I won't let them have their way. Allison, we're getting back at them," he vowed, his determination evident. And in that moment, I felt a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. With my father's wisdom guiding me, I returned to my in-laws' house where my husband and his parents were still basking in the excitement of the previous day's events. Keeping my emotions carefully hidden behind a light smile, I addressed them in a gentle tone. There's an even more amazing place than where we went yesterday. The autumn leaves are stunning right now. How about we go on a full-scale camping trip instead of staying in an RV? We could pitch a tent, enjoy a barbecue, and soak in the breathtaking scenery. At night, the sky is filled with stars. It's truly a hidden gem that I don't want to share with anyone else. Can I come too to fulfill my role as your wife? That sounds wonderful. It's going to be so much fun. Since it's in a secluded area, I'll drive, my husband eagerly agreed. As my wife and our daughter-in-law, of course, you should join us. My in-laws chimed in with equal enthusiasm. We decided to go camping again the following weekend. As always, they left all the preparation to me, their demands for discipline growing more incessant each day. But I had my secret plan in motion, meticulously arranging for my revenge. And when the day of our trip arrived, I borrowed an RV from my father, drove to a remote campsite, and watched with satisfaction as my husband and in-laws thrilled at the adventure ahead. Wow, it's like a private site, they exclaimed, eagerly exploring the new environment. We'll go for a walk and enjoy the scenery, Allison. Stow our tent, understood. Enjoy your walk, my husband instructed before they set off, leaving me to prepare the camp. Come on, let's go quickly, I urged, bidding them farewell and then setting to work on the campsite. About 30 minutes later, my husband called in a panic. What, you're lost. I can't find your dad's RV. I'm on my way home with it. What? What do you mean? I asked, bewildered. Don't worry, was his cryptic reply. Unbeknownst to them, I had left only the bare minimum for them to enjoy a real camping experience, a plan devised by my father. He had suggested they experience wild camping, where they would have to fend for themselves, akin to living on a deserted island rather than a convenient camping site with all amenities. You better set up your tent early and look for wood to start your fire. I know you guys have no lighter, so you'll have to start the fire yourself. I've left the pot so you can at least cook rice, my father had advised, ensuring they faced the challenges of nature head-on. You left us behind. You were the ones who said that I, as a wife, wasn't part of the family and shouldn't go camping with you guys. So I took you up to the campsite and tearfully went home. That's what you wanted to do, right? I stated calmly, hitting them with my logic. My husband was momentarily silenced by my words. Enjoy camping with just your family, I added before hanging up. But my husband's rage erupted, and he began yelling at me. Don't be ridiculous. If you don't come back now, I'll get a divorce from you. All right, let's get divorced. You'll regret saying that. Being abandoned on the highway, finding my father's cherished RV filled with trash. I've had enough of living with your parents who do nothing but disrespect me, and you're the ones who will regret it. Stupid woman, I retorted, utterly disgusted by his behavior. He abruptly hung up, leaving me seething with anger. Although I was nearby, I lost all will to go pick them up. After a while, I received another call from my husband. His tone had completely changed, and I could hear his confusion and trembling voice over the phone. I can't set up the tent no matter what. It's starting to rain and my parents are getting angry at me. It's getting cold too. What should I do? It's cold, regretting already. Why don't you look up how to set up a tent on YouTube? I suggested, trying to offer a solution. Forget the tent. My father pulled it too hard and ripped it apart, Allison. You've had your fun. Now fix your attitude and come pick us up. My husband snapped, his frustration evident. I'm not coming. If you walk for about an hour, you'll reach a broad road. If you're not going to camp, then come down here with your stuff, I replied firmly, refusing to bend to his demands. What? Just because I'm asking you nicely doesn't mean you can get all high and mighty, he retorted, revealing his true nature. Any lingering feelings I had for him had completely cooled. All I could do was sigh. Screw this. I'm going to dump all this useless stuff. Just wait till we get home, he muttered angrily before ending the call. Someone owns that place. It's private property. If you dump anything here, you'll be sued for illegal dumping, you know. There's a sign there that clearly states no littering, I warned, trying to reason with my husband. I don't care, he replied, his tone firm and unyielding. It was clear he didn't believe I was serious about the divorce. I had to make him understand the gravity of the situation. After the divorce, I'll be demanding compensation for the emotional distress from all the harassment you've done to me, I asserted, my voice steady and resolute. What? The divorce? Is it? I'm serious, he stammered, finally realizing the seriousness of my words. Our conversation from the time I was left behind on the highway is recorded on my dad's RV's dash cam, so you can't deny it. Not just that, I've also recorded the conversations when you were harassing me afterwards, I stated firmly, laying out the evidence. Let's calm down. We don't have any savings because we've been paying our mortgage. If you leave, I won't have anyone to cook and clean for us, which will be a problem. You should think before you speak, my husband pleaded, trying to appeal to practical concerns. I'm not your maid. If you don't agree to the divorce, I'll take it to court. It's going to become a big deal, and everyone in the family will know, I asserted, refusing to be swayed by his attempts to guilt-trip me. My husband, usually so conscious of others' judgment, fell silent, seemingly at a loss for words. In the background, I could hear his parents fussing, but their opinions no longer held any weight for me. After that, my husband attempted to say something with a preface of but then the call abruptly cut off. Soon after, I started receiving multiple calls from my in-laws, but I ignored them completely. After a while, the calls stopped ringing, indicating their phones must have died from a lack of battery. My father's revenge plan was a resounding success. As I made my way home, I picked up the divorce papers, filled them out, and left them on the table before returning to the comforting embrace of my childhood home, where my kind father awaited me. Meanwhile, my husband and in-laws took an inexplicably long 3 hours to descend the mountain that would normally take only 1 hour. That's why you should have used Google Maps instead of bothering me with calls. How foolish, I remarked to my husband, who arrived at my parents' house in a desperate attempt to salvage our relationship. His anger was palpable. Allison, get out here now. I'll teach you a lesson. If you have something to say, talk to my father. He's pretty upset, so it might not end well for you. But my imposing father stood firm at the entrance, unleashing a tirade against my husband and shutting him down. Moreover, they left their tent and camping gear in the mountains, leading to a lawsuit for illegal dumping filed by the owner of the mountain. The person who filed the lawsuit, none other than my father, who had inherited the land from my grandfather. Security cameras installed due to recurring trespassing and dumping incidents made it clear who was responsible for the mess. As for the punishment, after finalizing our divorce, I demanded and received $1 million each from my husband and in-laws for the emotional distress they caused me. Unable to pay off their mortgage, my husband's house was foreclosed, and he now lives with his parents in their leaky house, leading a modest life as a family of 3. But there's no use crying over spilled milk. I returned to the company I used to work at before getting married, regaining the lifestyle that suits me. Next month, I plan to go camping with my parents, and I'm sure it will be a blast. After all the turmoil, I'm finally reclaiming my happiness and looking forward to brighter days ahead.